Time to take a step inside the clubhouse as well. And who better than our own Roch Kubatko, as we are joined with him upstairs. Roch, I'm sorry I told you this was a day off, but look, you're the MVP. Sometimes it's like Adley. You got to get off the bench and play. So first of all, we just talked to Josh Lester and really got some insight on him being able to come up, get his first big league hit. Is it a shock to you today, though, with Coulomb reactivated, that he does in fact stay on this roster?
You're lucky I'm not in the parking lot cruising the tailgates. I do love a brat, I won't lie. It was a surprise. I think a lot of us made the assumption, and you should never assume, of course, they would just reverse that roster move, that once Danny Coulomb came off the bereavement list, that Josh Lester would be sent back down. He was only here for that reason. We thought it'd be a couple of days. He was added to the 40, and then surprise, it's Taron Vavra who gets sent down. And really, you know, they're going to see a lot of right-handed starters in a row. So they did want the left-handed bat on the bench. Ryan O'Hearn, they figure, is going to be in the lineup more often, especially with Gunnar Henderson day-to-day. And even though Vavra's also a left-handed bat, Lester has more pop. They kind of like having that power coming off the bench. He can play third base as well. So he ended up being the choice, at least for now. And Wisconsin native Taron Vavra, ouch, ends up getting optioned. I'm guessing maybe some family and friends had planned to attend. You can't really let that be a consideration, but I'm sure that stung a little bit. But Lester was making that assumption, I think, as well. He hadn't heard from the club today, which is good news if you think he might be optioned. Turns out his fiance, Maddie, was the one who texted him and said, hey, did you see on Twitter the roster move? And by the way, it's not you. That is how he found out. He had a pretty good source. His fiance let him know he was getting ready to come to the ballpark at that point. Again, still hadn't heard anything. So Josh Lester's still here.
It's really incredible. And when you look at this, one quick one for you here, Roch. Some fans were saying, well, couldn't Taron Vavra serve as a catcher since he had a little bit of time in AAA? Was that really a reality for him at all?
I mean, he could. Emergency, he absolutely could have. You hope that doesn't happen. It's not like you plan it in advance, like, hey, let's do this, and we get him in there. But, yeah, it's going to come in handy to have that. And really, you know, he's going to be back, and that versatility helps. You notice everybody is versatile, it seems like, in this organization right now. It's hard to find a guy who only plays one position, or even preparing for that down in the minors, moving guys around like Heston Kjerstad. Hey, let's play you at some first base. And we saw Santander up here playing some first. They just want to be able to move guys around as much as they can. It just increases their value and makes their jobs easier.
Of course, we know we needed a little bit of that versatility with Gunnar Henderson, some lower back tightness. What's the update on him?
Yeah, it's better. He took ground balls today, took batting practice. He told the media earlier at his locker that he thinks that he could go ahead and be back in the lineup as early as tomorrow. Brandon Hyde said hopefully the next day or two. When he was asked, Henderson said that, you know, he thinks he'd be available tonight if needed. He did let Hyde know, but I'm sure they'd rather lay off him. He's never had a back issue before. This was new. He said he started to feel it on the long train ride back from New York. To me, it's easier to stretch out that back on a train than a plane, but nonetheless, it started bothering him. I mean, you can get up easier and walk around, but he said it was really starting to feel it, and then it seized up on him. It was really painful. That's why he came out of the game early on Saturday, didn't play Sunday, but the good news is he's feeling better. So look for him in the lineup tomorrow.
Well, we'll also be looking for Roch's in-train exercises and stretching routine. That'll be the next video that everybody gets to take a part of here. Now, of course, manager Brandon Hyde getting really to reflect on his time here. He had plenty of questions about the ballpark, but was there anything else for you that stood out from the skipper today?
Yeah, he thought it was pretty cool that Ramon and Luis Urias are both in the lineup, both batting seventh. He enjoyed that, I thought, and the idea that they have the same birthday, parents, how cool is that, whatever. But specifically, though, with this club, Dean Kramer and Kyle Bradish are going to start the next two games of this series. So it looks like the rotation is just staying in line. If my math is correct, they're going to need a fifth starter on Saturday. He did not address that today. He will not be addressing that anytime soon, at least until Saturday maybe. But they're going to have to figure that out, of course. And it's not Grayson Rodriguez. And is it another Kyle or Austin Voth opener game? Could it be a Bruce Zimmerman who's here? Could they bring up somebody else like a Cole Irvin? We're not sure, but at least the update we have the rotation right now is they just seem to be keeping everybody in line, take advantage of those off days to provide some rest, and just push everybody ahead. So Kramer, Bradish will be the next two starters.
Well, you've mentioned the starters, so let's go ahead and look at tonight's starting pitching matchup for you here, brought to you by Sandy Spring Bank, looking to cover all your financial bases. Let's talk. Visit sandyspringbank.com/real today. It'll be the righty Kyle Gibson, the veteran, with a 3.89 ERA, 7-3 record. You can see that opponent average at 2.66 against a somewhat struggling righty and Freddie Peralta, 5-5, a 4.62. Opponents with a 2.54 off of him. Now, Roch, we've seen as of lately home runs have been more of a problem for Freddie Peralta. But let's get back to Kyle Gibson here for a moment, because what is it to you? We knew some of the things we're getting from a guy with this much service time, but what really stands out?
Yeah, I mean, we thought, well, hey, he'll be an innings eater like Jordan Lyles was, and he'll provide leadership in the clubhouse like Lyles did. But the production has been so much better, and you really hope for that as well. I mean, yes, it's nice to eat innings, but if you're giving up 5-6 runs a game, it's not really helping the ball club that much, and especially when you're a contender. But he has been on such a nice roll right now. He's getting deep into games. Not many starters are doing that. He's a guy who can give you 6 and 7 right now and save that bullpen. One of the reasons Grayson Rodriguez isn't here, because even when he was pitching well, he was only really giving him 5, and you're still going to that bullpen too much and passing that baton. And Gibson's a guy that's giving him the length, but also the quality starts, 7. I mean, he's been really, really good for them, and I think maybe even a little more than they thought they were going to get. But keep in mind, when they were interested in signing him, they had talked to him about ways that they thought that he could get better, and he had already kind of talked about those same things. They were seeing the same things, saying, look, here's what I think I can take advantage of, this and that, the sweeper and all the technology the Orioles have with their pitching instruction, the data, everything else. It really seemed like a good marriage, and they thought they'd be able to get more out of Kyle than what had been he had gotten out of them before with the Phillies, Rangers. There was something in the tank there that hadn't come out, and it's coming out now. So it's a lot better than just getting length from him. He is giving him a chance to win every single time he takes that mound now.
And it's been encouraging. He was so high on the Orioles defense, and what's cool about this is even when it changes up, you lose Cedric Mullins. Well, he knows Aaron Hicks, so he has no reason to feel that he's going to falter at all in the guys who are backing them up. Now, one thing for you here, you've gotten to see some special Orioles teams come through, and that includes some different players. You've seen sometimes some veterans that can get a little salty, a little grizzly, but for Kyle Gibson, he's in the middle, if not leading, every celebration. I mean, he's a kid in a candy store with this young group. Is there anybody you've seen like him before?
I tell you, it really does stand out. I mean, just how much fun he's having. And they've had a lot of good guys that have passed through here over the years for sure. But, it's a silly little thing to stand out to me with Kyle. And one of them, you never see players eating in the clubhouse anymore. That was like the old days where they had the tables set up, guys would get their plates, and we'd have to stand around and not stare at their, while they're chewing. Now they just go back in the food room. But one of his starts at home, he actually sat at one of the tables, and we walked in. He got up, walked over to his locker to address us, knowing that if he'd been back in that kitchen area, he wouldn't have seen us. And then when he was done, he walked back, sat back down, and finished eating. And I went up to him the next day and said, hey, we really appreciate it. You don't have to let your food get cold on our account. But it was just one of those kind of veteran gestures and something really kind. I mean, who cares whether we're waiting or not? But he said, no, it's no problem. I don't want to keep you guys waiting. It was fine. But those are the kind of things. And then when we were waiting for him at his locker, maybe it was his last start at home, he waited because the reliever next to him, Brian Baker, was still getting dressed, and he didn't want that crowd around the locker getting in his way. So he stood back, waited till Brian was dressed, walked away. Then he came over. In that case, he kept us waiting, but for a good reason, because he was being considerate to a teammate. So this guy thinks of everything.
He really does, Roch. We have loved it. We'll let you go ahead and get to your daily blog. We know you've got a lot to cover today.